I wish this was complicated or that it somehow required a lengthy introduction. But in this case, the truth is stark and simple. The current US administration has declared war on crypto. Ready? Let's go. Today, we are going to discuss the unjust war being waged against crypto, the Wells notice received today by Coinbase, the Kraken ACH on-ramps and off-ramps being turned off, the FOMC rate hike today, Justin Sun getting sued by the SEC, Jake Paul getting the same treatment, and finally some good news, a Hydra head open on the Cardano Mainnet. If you understand there's no reason to get bent out of shape by the Z on the tank and that I'm just pointing out this is a wildly unnecessary war of aggression being waged against us, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Today was a pivotal day for all of us in crypto. Honestly, probably a day that we'll all remember for a very long time. Because today was the day when we finally realized that we actually are already involved in a legal war with the government. The current US administration is dead set on murdering crypto. Today, they sent a Wells notice to Coinbase, the only public company really doing business in crypto. Coinbase is our only large crypto entity that's gone public, which is kind of interesting. That makes it very interesting that the SEC went after them first. I think there's probably a few different reasons for this. But first, let's talk about what's actually happening. So what is a Wells notice? A Wells notice is when the SEC says, hey, subject company, we have been investigating you. And the staff of the SEC has concluded that the SEC should bring a civil action against you, an enforcement action against you. This is your chance to try to convince us otherwise. But in practice, what does it mean? It means that an enforcement action is imminent. The SEC is going to sue Coinbase, and this is going to be one of those crazy XRP style suits. I mean, probably bigger and longer than XRP. And by the way, I know a few of you XRP guys are writing me extremely terse emails right now because you become so enraged whenever I call it the XRP suit and not the Ripple suit. But come on, everybody knows exactly which lawsuit I'm talking about. I mean, if the SEC continues being the SEC it is today in 2023, then, I mean, this could go on for a decade. And Coinbase has some deep pockets. They kind of picked the biggest possible enemy they could. They picked the biggest possible fight they could. I think that's part of their calculus. I think Gary Gensler was sitting around and he said, well, if we really believe that almost all cryptocurrencies are securities, then we might as well just go after the biggest company in all of US crypto. You know, I think we could say that Binance is maybe the biggest company in all of crypto globally, but definitely in the US, Coinbase is the biggest. And Coinbase might even be the hardest to go after. I mean, they've obviously got a gigantic litigation war chest. Coinbase could mount a litigation war against the SEC bigger than almost anybody. But also, the SEC knew exactly what Coinbase was when they allowed Coinbase to IPO, when they allowed Coinbase to sell Coinbase securities, Coinbase stock to the general public. They knew exactly what Coinbase was. There was no mystery there. So they allowed the Coinbase S1, that was the registration statement for that IPO, knowing exactly what Coinbase was. And now they turn around and they say, hey, Coinbase, you have violated the 33 Act and the 34 Act. This is kind of problematic. I think Gary Gensler was like, hey, if we're going to pick a fight with everybody, let's start with the biggest guy, and that's Coinbase. So here Brian Armstrong says, today Coinbase received a Wells notice from the SEC focused on staking and asset listings. A Wells notice typically precedes an enforcement action. 2 years ago, the SEC reviewed our business in detail and approved Coinbase to go public. Our S1, that's the registration statement for the IPO, clearly explained our asset listing process and included 57 references to staking. Coinbase runs a rigorous asset review process and has rejected more than 90% of assets. While we understand this is all part of the journey to reforming our financial system, we are right on the law, confident in the facts, and welcome the opportunity for Coinbase to get before a court. We are proud to stand up for our customers and the industry in these moments. Going forward, the legal process will provide an open and public forum before an unbiased body where we will be able to make clear for all to see that the SEC simply has not been fair, reasonable, or even demonstrated a seriousness of purpose. In the meantime, Coinbase will continue to do what we do best. We're excited to work with all the governments and regulators around the world. You can read more here, and they have a big article on exactly what's happening. Coinbase's chief legal officer, Paul Grewal, added some more detail. He said, over the past 9 months, Coinbase has met with the SEC more than 30 times, sharing details of our business to build a path to registration. During this time, the SEC hasn't given basically zero feedback on what to change or how to register. Instead, today we received a Wells notice. When Coinbase filed to go public in 2021, our S1 described our business in much detail. Just like Brian Armstrong detailed, the SEC approved us to go public knowing these details. Now they've changed their mind on what is allowed. In 2018, we acquired 2 broker-dealer licenses in an effort to become regulated by the SEC. These licenses are currently dormant, and we've been unable to activate them with the SEC for digital asset securities. Last July, we filed a petition with the SEC calling for more regulatory clarity. We have yet to receive a response to our petition. For comparison, over many years, we've been able to successfully become a licensed and regulated crypto business in places like Singapore, Ireland, Australia, and Germany. We've also been able to successfully become regulated by another U.S. federal regulator, obtaining our DCM and DCO license from the CFTC and by many U.S. state regulators. The SEC remains a sole outlier here. We don't list securities. Of the thousands plus crypto assets Coinbase has reviewed over the years, only roughly 240 of those have met our standards. We believe a large number of crypto securities also exist and should be available to register and trade on SEC-registered brokerages and exchanges, a point we've made repeatedly. The truth is that today there is no clear rulebook from the SEC on crypto, and efforts to engage with the SEC are met with silence or enforcement actions. They have not followed a good faith rulemaking process with industry as required. At times, the SEC and CFTC don't agree on the definition of a commodity or security. For instance, the CFTC chair has said Ethereum was a commodity, while the SEC chair has hinted Ethereum might be a security. Even when giving us our Wells notice, the SEC wouldn't specify which assets we're giving them concern or what specific arguments that we've made on staking are wrong. Instead, we were simply told to consider the chair's generic statements. It's hard to throw the rulebook at an entire economic sector when there is no rulebook. So what happens next? We avail ourselves of the court system to finally start to get some clarity for the crypto industry in the US. Ironically, establishing some case law may be our best shot at getting regulatory clarity. And then he links to the Wells notice itself. What I like about these statements from the CLO and the founder of Coinbase is that they're going to fight. The SEC has been stuck in this fight with XRP forever. This is an even bigger fight. Coinbase has been, I think they were hoping this wouldn't happen, of course, but they've been preparing for this for a long time. I think they've known for a long time that this SEC was going to be a problem. And you can tell by the speed with which they got this article out. While Coinbase may be one of the hardest targets, it's not the only target. We also saw this from Kraken. And you'll remember, just yesterday, we looked at rumors that the SEC was going to go after Coinbase, Kraken, and Binance. It seems clear to me that that is probably true because just today, Kraken sent out this email. We'd like to inform you that as of March 27th, Kraken will be unable to support ACH deposits and withdrawals. Of course, their ACHs, every time I saw their ACHs, they were going through Silvergate. Of course, Silvergate is no longer a thing, so this all makes sense. But it looks like, normally what would happen in this circumstance is that a large centralized exchange like Kraken would just find another banking partner to take care of their ACH fiat on-ramp and off-ramp. transactions, their deposits and withdrawals from people's banks. But that's not happening. Apparently, they haven't been able to find another bank to take up that partnership, or they've gotten something from the SEC that makes them hesitant to do that. It could be either or both. But in any case, no more ACH deposit and withdrawals for Kraken. And that is a big deal. That's a pretty big customer base. People who want to use ACH to deposit and withdraw from your exchange. Now, I know some of you are out there scoffing right now, like, I'm Captain Decentralization. I don't care if the SEC goes after the centralized exchanges. Here's the problem. They can do the same thing to the base layer cryptocurrencies. So the SEC is also suing Justin Sun, it turns out. And let's face it, Justin Sun and Tron, I'm just gonna put it out there. He's widely despised in crypto. Justin Sun, in my opinion, is widely despised in crypto, as is Tron. I mean, Tron, it has its community and people who love Tron. I'm not trying to offend you if you're a Tronophile. If you're some kind of Tronophile, I'm not trying to offend you. But let's face it, Tron and Justin Sun are pretty widely despised in crypto. So people also won't care about this headline. People will, in fact, find it pretty amusing that along with Justin Sun, the SEC is also suing Lindsay Lohan, Jake Paul, Soulja Boy, Lil Yachty, Neo, Akon, and Michelle Mason, I don't even know who that last one is, for promoting Tron. So people will probably laugh about this. Here's the problem. They could do this. This article is citing extensive wash trading, which for the people who despise Justin Sun and Tron, that won't surprise them at all. But they could go after the base layer currencies too. They could go after any base layer currency project. The US securities laws are written so broadly, it's super easy for the SEC to write a complaint against any of our even top 10 base layer cryptocurrencies and go ahead and file that baby, or fire. Be really clear on this next part. The SEC is not trying to get crypto in compliance. They are trying to destroy crypto. Here's the actual Wells notice that went out to Coinbase via their counsel. Nowhere in here does it tell Coinbase what they did wrong, what they should have done, what mistakes they made. The SEC just says, hey, we're hanging our hats on these sections of the 34 Act and the 33 Act. We're not even going to tell you specifically what we think you did wrong. We're just saying you guys are a bunch of securities violators and we're going to crush you. That's what's going on. This is their plan for all of crypto. They don't want us in compliance. They want to kill us. While one piece of crypto thinking has always been that eventually they would come after us, eventually they would fight us, another piece of crypto thinking has always been an embrace of Austrian economics, and an idea that eventually the Keynesian behavior of the central banks would lead to a debasing and inflating of all the fiat currencies to nothingness. We've been talking a lot over the last few days about the bank term funding project and how that backstop is making up to, 4.4 trillion available to the banks as a loan that may or may not ever get paid back, that will be equivalent to the par value of all of the long-term treasuries, all the treasuries, and all of the mortgage-backed securities those banks are holding. So that seems to be a large movement of funds out to the banks. And then we see the FOMC today still talking about fighting inflation, which of course has turned out not to be transitory, this sort of permanent, non-transitory inflation we've got. And what do we get today? A 25 basis point hike. Here is the actual release, redlined from the previous release from the previous FOMC meeting. And you can see they changed their guidance as well. They say last time they said the committee anticipates that ongoing increases in the target range will be appropriate. This time they said the committee anticipates that some additional policy firming may be appropriate. one of the first questions in the Q&A that Jerome Powell got was whether this additional policy firming applied to the rate itself or other things, other tools they might use. Jerome Powell said, no, that applies to the rate. They're actually talking about the rate with that. But he said the important words there were some and may. So previously they said they anticipate that ongoing increases will be appropriate. Now they're saying they anticipate that some additional policy firming may be appropriate. So before it was just like, yeah, we're gonna have to increase the rate. We're gonna hike some more. Now it's there may be reason to do some increases in the rate that we're just gonna call additional policy firming. So this is a very different outcome of this FOMC meeting than previous. Just looking at Jerome Powell in the press conference, he looked like a different man. Last time he looked like a man who knew where he was going. This time he looked like a beleaguered man who didn't know where things were really going to end up. I hate to say this, but I honestly think that Coinbase was the first large centralized exchange target of the SEC and of this administration, because its well-known Brian Armstrong effectively banned woke activism from Coinbase, and that it was one of the very few sort of Bay Area, Northern California based big tech companies to do something like that. I think that probably put them on the wrong side, on the wrong list, the bad list for the current administration. But in any case, regardless of who they attacked first, this war was going to happen eventually. And it looks like all of us in crypto, we're in it now. Finally, I always like to finish with some good, homegrown, positive Cardano news. So here we go. Sebastian Nagel reports we have a Hydra head open on Mainnet, and we featured it in today's monthly review meeting on the Hydra project. The next release, 0.10.0, will be the first Mainnet compatible. Is your use case ready? From there, we will add more features to become the 1.0.0 our users need. So it looks like Hydra is moving along steadily. I think we sort of have yet to experience the scaling era of Cardano, but I think we're all looking forward to it. I hope you're having a great week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.